Hi there, I'm Matthew Lester from the Rhodes Business School. This is a lecture about changing tax strategy on retirement fund benefits. Some of you may remember a childhood story of waking Rip Van Winkle. Rip Van Winkle slept for 20 years, and when he woke up, there were so many changes in the world that he did not know where he was. Well, the same thing has happened with tax strategy in South Africa. Over the last 20 years, we have seen ministers of finance come and go. We've seen changes in our constitution, and we have seen enormous change in the tax acts. On 1 March 2016, this has culminated in the introduction of a new retirement fund tax regime. And everybody is concentrating on the contribution side of the new amendments. So most of you will know that from 1 March 2016, the tax deduction on contribution to all funds will be limited to a deduction of 27.5% of taxable income or remuneration. That's the good news. But there will be an overall cap of 350,000 Rand per annum. Now, the cap is only going to apply to some 100,000 taxpayers in South Africa who earn more than 1.2 million Rand a year. So many people are saying there's not a lot to the story. However, one has to look at the total package to understand what it's all about. Now, when you were at university, your professor would have told you about the second schedule lump sum benefits. There used to be enormous tax savings attributable to this table. However, over the years, this has been whittled away. And today we have a lump sum benefit tax-free of 500,000 Rand. Yes, that's very attractive. Then we pay 18% on the next 200,000 Rand, taking it up to 700,000 Rand, and that's pretty attractive as well. However, when lump sum benefits exceed 700,000 Rand, the tax rates start to climb to the extent that you pay 36% on a lump sum exceeding 1.05 million. Now that can be very expensive if one compares it to what is going on in the personal income tax marginal rates. Now we know that since 1995, all ministers of finance have been trying to give the lower end taxpayer a better deal. There have been tax reductions, there have been fiscal drag adjustments, etc. At the lower end of the tax table, life is good. However, we have seen, particularly in the 2016 national budget, that tax rates are starting to rise on income above 550,000 Rand per annum. People don't take that into account when they look at retirement reform and how we can manage the taxable income of a taxpayer so as to avoid getting into the higher brackets. It works something like this. Look at the components of retirement taxable income. Remember first that the salary would have disappeared. So income consists of capital gains from share portfolios and unit trusts. These are subject to capital gains tax. But because of the 40% inclusion rate on capital gains tax, the maximum tax that you can ever pay on a capital gain is limited to 16%. On top of that, drawdowns from insurance policies that have been taxed within the fund are tax-free. The problem in retirement planning, and often the criticism of retirement funds, is that any annuity drawn down forms gross income, which is fully taxable. That's the bad news. But now let's look at the good news. When a taxpayer retires and exceeds the age of 65, they get a range of deductions and abatements. These consist of increased annual allowances on investment income, general rebates coupled with age rebates, and very importantly, the medical rebate increases to 33.3% of medical expenditure with no 7.5% limit, which would have applied before you were 65 years old. This allows you to completely reform the way that we look at taxable income of a retired taxpayer. Because what we are looking to do is say, we will make tax-deductible contributions to retirement funds across a lifetime. When it comes to retirement, we use the living annuity principle to draw down funds to pay medical expenses, which are neutralized by the medical rebate. Then some of the annuity income will be protected by the lower tax brackets that the taxpayer enjoys on income less than 550,000 Rand per annum. And then, of course, there is some component of your retirement funds that can be withdrawn as lump sum benefits. All of these need to be maximized in a cocktail of tax planning thought. It goes like this. So if we retire and we live on annuity income only, let's say that's 500,000 Rand per annum, what we see on that is even if that income is fully taxed at full marginal rate after rebates, the average tax rate is only 23%. So right at the starting off period, we can say to the taxpayer, you may have saved tax deductible and enjoyed a 41% subsidy on your contributions. However, what you're drawing back is only being taxed at maximum 23% because of your lower marginal rates. But then you have to get into the big selling job and say, but I can do a hell of a lot better than that, because I can go along and say, if I structure your retirement to live on capital, and we say only a component of the retirement income will come from annuities, let's say that's 400,000, then we might have 50,000 Rand of taxable income and 50,000 Rand of capital gains from selling off shares or unit trusts. That immediately substantially reduces the taxable income because we get the annual allowances for interest and capital gains tax. Thereafter, only a portion of the capital gain, 40%, forms taxable income. So when you run through the taxation computation with those allowances granted, the tax rate falls off a bit to 20%. But I haven't finished yet. Now we're going to get a little bit more clever. And we're going to say, yes, we can do all of that, but a fundamental problem of any retirement plan is your medical expenses. And at over 65, your medical expenses qualify for the 33% rebate, thus neutralizing a large component of the annuity income and reducing the average rate of tax down to 12%. But we're not even finished yet. Another amendment that has come from retirement reform is that we can now contribute to retirement annuities across a lifetime. The old restriction that contributions had to stop at 70 has been withdrawn. So even though you might be in retirement drawing down on retirement funds, there is nothing to stop you saying, right, I have taxable income from my annuities, I want to roll that over and contribute 27.5% back into further annuities. Then I couple that with my medical rebate, and we find an astounding position that we're left with an average tax rate on 500,000 Rand of income of only 4%. It's an amazing thing to get your mind around this, and it's an enormous tax planning opportunity. So let's start making some conclusions. We can say the taxation benefits of the lump sum table in the second schedule to the Income Tax Act only extend to 700,000 Rand. Above 700,000 Rand, that we are going to pay more tax on a lump sum than we probably would using the marginal rates in the personal income tax table. But there are other things to also consider. If you take a lump sum, then you are taxed on withdrawal. Effectively, that means that you are paying tax on income before you need it, paying tax up front. You are also losing the tax exemption that is granted to the retirement fund. And you are taking money out of the retirement fund into your own name, which potentially escalates your estate duty liability. So the tax strategy underpinning the withdrawal of retirement fund benefits has changed fundamentally over the last 20 years. We used to seek to maximize lump sum benefits on retirement. That has changed to an effort to live on capital and manage the withdrawal of retirement fund savings using the living annuity principle so as to time the accrual of income to minimize taxation on an annual basis. This achieves a lifetime of attractive tax incentives on contributions to retirement funds, tax-free growth on investments within the retirement funds, and the reduction of taxation on withdrawal of retirement fund savings. To capital, we get the management of estate duty exposure. In explaining this to clients, it's best to use a diagram. We put up a timeline. We say you are born, you graduate, then you work for 40 years before you retire, and then you live in retirement until you die. We used to advise taxpayers to concentrate on finding a spouse, having a family, and acquiring a property until they were about 35. Then would come the savings and investment cycle where people accumulated funds outside of retirement funds. And we would say to people, concentrate on your retirement plan between 40 and 60. Then we would get to retirement, we would take out the lump sums, and people would live on life annuities. Today, it's completely different. We say to people, your life cycle is about the same, maybe a little bit longer, but in addition to finding a spouse, having kids, and getting a property, one needs to start retirement planning earlier so that one can always make tax-deductible contributions across a lifetime. But then when we get to retirement, tax planning does not stop. We have to manage the withdrawal from retirement fund benefits while making further contributions right up until you die. These are fantastic opportunities. There is huge potential for people to use the new retirement fund regime to help their retirement planning objectives. I'm Matthew Lester at the Rhodes Business School. Thank you for your attention.